Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Tara Washington, and we are welcoming you this evening to the DeKalb BrighterHome owner-occupied rehab program. We are so delighted to have you this evening, and thank you for taking the time. It is now 6:03, and we've got about 35 people that are joining us, and again, very thankful. I am going to go ahead and get started just because we want to be mindful of your time. And I'll just reiterate, Tara Washington here with Decide DeKalb. I oversee marketing and communications, and we are, again, very, very excited that you are joining us. This conversation and virtual talk is an important initiative focusing on home ownership, strengthening neighborhoods, and investing directly in DeKalb County residents. And so it is my pleasure to welcome Dr. Alan Ferguson. You all know Dr. Ferguson as the Chief Housing Officer for DeKalb County, and my colleague, amazing, brilliant Tiffany Wills with Decide DeKalb. She oversees Redevelopment and Strategic Initiatives, and she is our Vice President. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Dr. Ferguson and Tiffany. And again, thank you so much. And just a little bit of ground rules, housekeeping. There will be an opportunity for questions and answers at the end, but we do encourage you all to jot down your questions, and we will definitely be getting to them at the end. So thanks again for joining us.
All right. Excuse me. Thank you, Tara. I appreciate it. So again, welcome everyone, and thank you for taking the time to join us this evening to learn more as we share information about what we think is going to be a really impactful program that we are bringing forth here in DeKalb County, which is DeKalb BrighterHome, our owner-occupied rehab program. And so, if you can go to the next slide, please. Yes, so this is the second information session that we're having on programs that we're intending to launch here in DeKalb County, all focused on really increasing housing access, more housing choice, and building stronger communities here within our county. And so maybe some of you joined us on Monday evening where we talked about the DeKalb Home Start, the down payment assistance program. You can actually see a recording of that information session if you go visit Decide DeKalb's website where it's posted there. This evening's session will also be recorded and will be made available as soon as possible. Hopefully by Friday, it will get posted as well for those who are unable to attend and participate in real time. But we also have two additional upcoming sessions for our DeKalb Housing Catalyst program, which is our multifamily gap financing loan fund that we're intending to launch. And that will be next Tuesday, April 21st at 1:30 p.m. And then Thursday, April 23rd at 3 p.m., we're going to have an information session on our housing capacity building seed fund, which again is targeted towards really trying to provide training and resources to organizations within DeKalb County to help us further our housing goals. So next slide, please. So before I go on, I would be remiss if I did not speak about our comprehensive housing plan. And so in November of 2025, DeKalb County launched the development of a comprehensive housing plan. So this plan is intended to really talk about the opportunities and how we really address the challenges of housing within DeKalb County. So I really want to emphasize that it is not just an affordable housing plan. It really is a housing plan. So regardless of whether you fall where you fall on the income spectrum, whether you want to own or rent, what we're seeking to do is really try to understand all of the housing needs for our diverse population here in DeKalb County and come up with really strong and effective strategies so that we can address all of those housing needs. So There were a series of community conversations that wrapped a few weeks ago. The consulting team is hard at work. We're kind of at the midpoint, but I encourage all of you to, voice your opinion and participate, in really helping us understand what you, as our residents or stakeholders, think should be the housing priorities for DeKalb County. So you'll see, on your screen, a QR code that will take you to a website for the Comprehensive Housing Plan project page. And you can also find it at engagedecab.decalbcountyga.gov /DCCHP. And I would be remiss if I didn't give a big shout out to our planning and sustainability department. The lead project manager for us here at the county is Ava Chavot, who's leading this effort. But we also have a fantastic consultant team led by Madison Davis, who's with Sycamore Consultants. They're in charge of our outreach strategies, as well as Bithia Palmer, who is our project consultant, our lead consultant agency, which is Enterprise Community Partners. And of course, as the Chief Housing Officer, I'm involved in this exercise as well. So, shameless plug. Please, we want your voices, we want your opinions to be heard in this process as we develop this plan, which is really going to set the pace and the tone for how we address housing opportunity in DeKalb County for years to come. Next slide, please. So, when we talk about, this program and why we're looking to launch this new owner-occupied rehab program here in DeKalb County, this Brighter Home initiative, it really matters, and it matters, to, our residents for a variety of reasons. Really, kind of first and foremost, in DeKalb County, we have a lot of residents that are living in, aging housing stock. DeKalb County is, a suburban county that was really built out, between the late 1950s into the 60s into the 70s and early 80s. And so if you think about the ages of homes built during that era, some of them are in need of critical repairs. And so we've got, a significant stock of aging homes here in DeKalb County. Also, with housing costs, continuing to increase, there's an increasing cost burden for homeowners when it comes to, regular maintenance and repairs on their homes. And so we want to try to alleviate some of that cost burden to help our homeowners, maintain their homes and maintain their homes, well. And all of this is really a part of, strategies to, prevent displacement and, to also preserve home ownership, in the county. When it comes to, keeping your home well maintained, oftentimes people decide, to sell their home, sell their residence, because they aren't able to take care of those critical repairs that will allow them to stay and remain in the home. And so that forces them, quite frankly, into, situations where they may be compelled to sell their home and have to try to find, other accommodations elsewhere, which, displaces families and, destabilizes neighborhoods. Also, as I mentioned, preserving home ownership. We think one of the ways that we can, really try to address, long-term affordability here in DeKalb County is by trying, to provide resources and support for homeowners to stay and remain in their homes as long as possible. And so it's fits in line with our goals around housing preservation to support this program. Also, most of us spend the majority of our time, in our homes. And so by making sure that we address critical repairs, we're addressing, you know, important health, safety, and quality of life issues. This is particularly important for some of our elder residents as well, because a lot of them want to remain in their homes and want to age in place. But they need, additional accommodations and modifications to their homes in order to make those possible. And so we want to try to encourage and support that activity. And then, as I mentioned, all of this, really supports our overall goals of, supporting neighborhood stabilization as well as preserving, community wealth. When homes fall into disrepair, they get devalued. That means homeowners, they lose the equity that they built up, over the years in those homes. And we want to try to do everything that we can to help our homeowners, preserve that wealth, preserve that opportunity for generational wealth for them to pass on to their heirs and to their loved ones. So this program matters, and it matters a lot for all of these significant reasons. So, to give you a quick overview of the program and what we anticipate putting forth. So, the purpose is really to provide critical home repairs to eligible homeowners. And I really want to emphasize critical home repairs. Oftentimes, when programs are launched and yeah, we say critical repairs, sometimes people think that you're going to get an HGTV type of home makeover. And this is not that kind of program, but it is the type of program that is going to keep your home, safe, warm and dry and accessible. And those are, really kind of the pillars, if you will, of trying to maintain the longevity of your home. And so we're looking at providing up to a maximum amount of $30,000 per home for owner-occupied rehab activities. This would be inclusive of any contractor, fees that would go with that. So it's an all-in $30,000 per home. And there's also an opportunity to layer this program, the Brighter Home program, with DeKalb County's existing owner-occupied rehab program, which is the special purpose home repair program offered by our community development department, where they offer up to $14,000 in repairs. So it is possible for an eligible homeowner to apply for both home programs, home repair programs, and receive up to a total of 44,000 in total repair benefits. And the targeted outcomes for this program, again, are, safe, habitable homes, extending the housing lifespan, and all of this is a part of a strategy to make sure that we preserve and stabilize, our neighborhoods here in DeKalb County. So, so I will now turn it over to Tiffany Wills to discuss the homeowner eligibility criteria. So, Tiffany, floor is yours.
Thank you, Alan. Good evening, everyone. And we are going to jump into the eligibility criteria. There's going to be a lot of information. I encourage you all to use the Q&A feature in Zoom. So if you don't have the menu bar on your screen right now at the bottom, if you just hover over the bottom, you should see the black menu bar. If you don't already see the Q&A button, click on the button that has the three dots in the circle that says more, and then you should see the Q&A button option. And once you click on that, you'll have the ability to submit written questions, and we'll try to respond to some of those in writing in the Q&A box, and then others we will get to at the end of the presentation. So our homeowner eligibility criteria, you must own and occupy the home as your primary residence currently. You must have lived and owned in the home for the last 10 years. Your combined household income must be at or below 80% area median income, adjusted for household size, and we'll get into those in a moment. Additionally, you cannot have access to DeKalb County Special Home Repair Program assistance within the last 10 years. And of course, the property must be located within DeKalb County proper. Next slide, please. So the AMI limits on screen are provided by HUD for the 2025 year. Typically, those amounts are updated on April 1st of every year. However, this year, due to a lot of the federal government shutdowns and delays, we anticipate that those amounts will be released on May 1st. So these amounts will be changing on May 1st, and we will update those, but we did want to give a reference for what they are currently for 2025. Next slide, please. So we will have several preferred applicants, and we will score every application as we receive it. They will be scored and ranked, and then we will be able to start making awards and renovating homes. So those preferred categories are going to be households whose AMI is less than 60%. If your applicant is head of household and is disabled, that's a preferred category. Military veterans that are head of households and head of households that are age 62 years old or older. And then, of course, if you have owned and lived in your home for the last 15 years and not just the 10-year minimum, then that will be an additional preference that we will be making in the program. Next slide, please. So what are the eligible repairs? Dr. Ferguson mentioned quality, safety of life, critical home repairs. So those are going to include your health and safety improvements. So roofing repairs, electrical, plumbing, HVAC. There will be including limited structural repairs. So there will be some that we will be able to cover, but of course, due to the funding limitations, not all structural repairs may be eligible. Additionally, if you are aging in place for those seniors age 62 or older, or if you have mobility issues, accessibility modifications are eligible. If there's any outstanding code violations, then there are some limited code compliance corrections that can be included in your repair scope of work. And then exterior improvements include painting, pressure washing, and some landscaping up to $2,000 of the maximum $30,000 or $44,000 limits. Next slide. So your affordability and residency requirements after the renovations are completed. In order for this program to function as a grant, the applicants must live in the home for 10 years after the work is completed, and it must remain as their primary residence. If you sell the home within the first 10 years, if you relocate within the first 10 years and it's no longer your primary residence, then the full grant amount will have to be repaid. There is no interest on this grant program, but at the end of 10 years, if you set aside all of the requirements, then the $30,000 or the $44,000 will be forgiven. Next slide. So how are we going to implement this project? So Decide DeKalb is going to be the program administrator and manager. We will be receiving applications, vetting those applications, and we will also be procuring a bench of pre-qualified contractors to assist the homeowners and applicants with coming up with the renovation scope of work, obtaining those bids from contractors, reviewing the bids to ensure that they are in line with the scope of work that's necessary and that the costs are fair. So the contractors that we will be procuring through a competitive procurement process will include 3 tiers. Tier A are contractors that have at least 5 years experience. Tier B will have at least 10 years experience. And then Tier C will be for those contractors who have over 10 years experience and capacity. Once we have that bench of multiple contractors secured and approved by our board of directors, then we will be making assignments for different contractors to be working in different commission districts to ensure that the work is going to be allocated fairly among all of those contractors and that we are able to provide adequate services to all of the applicants. The cost structure for contractors, profit and overhead is going to have a maximum limit of 20% of the total budget. There'll be a minimum and maximum that will also be taken into consideration to ensure that the bulk of the funding that applicants received is actually going into the renovation work itself. So again, the regular program maximum is going to be $30,000. If you apply for the special home repair program through DeKalb County Community Development, that could be an additional $14,000 for a total of $44,000. Next slide. So our procurement process is going to be fair. We're going to have a selection committee. We will review all of the applications from contractors and implementation partners. And then once we've selected the top few, we're estimating about 5 to 10 partners will be procured. Then our board of directors will approve all of those that have been procured. The benefits is that for applicants is that we have a dedicated team and staff internally and also externally to assist applicants with their scopes of work. We're going to ensure that every application that is vetted and that is eligible and proceeding with funding will have a dedicated sort of project manager from the contractor side, in addition to a staff lead with Decide DeKalb. And this is also going to increase the opportunities for contractors themselves. So we expect that all of our contractors have a track record of success, a track record of quality workmanship, of delivering scope and execution on time and within budget, always important, and also that we're complying with all county and state building code regulations. Next slide. So how are we going to be partnering with cities? In addition to being eligible for both the Brighter Home program and also DeKalb County's special home repair program, if you live in one of these cities, you are still going to be eligible for the program. And if those cities have their own owner-occupied rehab program, we are having discussions with some of those municipalities, including the City of Atlanta, to see if there's an opportunity to combine sources of funds. But cities essentially will also be a point of reference that will be able to work with residents and refer them to the Brighter Home program with Decide DeKalb. Also ensuring that the local municipal code requirements are being met by the scope of work and the contractor, and then partnering on neighborhood stabilization strategies where they may not have an owner-occupied rehab program, but there may be another funding source to support homeowners. Next slide, please. So our nonprofit organizations are going to function very similar to our cities. So they'll be engaged with community outreach, referring residents to the Brighter Home program, additionally providing additional assistance with applications and completing all of the information required to get started. Also case management support and coordinating with other housing services. Next slide, please. And I will hand it back over to Alan to talk about the application and delivery.
All right, thank you, Tiffany. Yeah, so when it comes to, the application and delivery process, it's really, starts, if you will, with, outreach and, application intake. So we are, intending to work, very closely with our Board of Commissioners, local, anchor institutions, faith-based organizations, other nonprofits, community associations, the whole gamut in terms of really trying to make sure that folks are aware of this program and, the benefit that it offers. And then once, it goes through, the application where, applications are completed and submitted, there's the eligibility, verification. Then comes, the contractor assignment, and then that's followed by, a home inspection and a scope development. And I will really, emphasize that at the point of the scope development, that's where your assigned contractor is going to sit down with the homeowner and go through the scope. And there has to be, it necessitates there be mutual agreement on the repairs and the priority repairs that will get accomplished, within the scope of the budget. We want to be very transparent with our homeowners that, even though they may have a wish list of items, the focus is going to be on those needed and necessary, critical repairs, and there will be some prioritization around those things. And then, after that process is completed, the scope of work has been received, the inspection has been received by Decide DeKalb and reviewed and approved, then that's when the construction will begin. And the rehab construction will begin. And even during the rehab construction, there will be some oversight and inspections that will be conducted, really to act as a second set of eyes and to validate that the work is being completed and being completed in a quality fashion, but also two, to act as additional assurance that even after the process and the rehab construction is complete, if there are any issues that have developed or arrived out of the construction process, we'll actually have a record of what's taken place during construction so that we can go back, verify, if indeed it was an issue, caused or exacerbated by the construction, and address those issues accordingly. And then once the project is complete, there'll be a final sign off, and then the homeowner will enter into the affordability compliance period, and there'll be ongoing, annual, compliance monitoring. Again, this program is intended to assist homeowners and primarily legacy homeowners with staying and remaining in their homes. And so there is the residency requirement that you must occupy the home for 10 years in order for the funds, which will be in the form of a recoverable grant, and that those funds won't be recaptured. So there's going to be ongoing compliance monitoring to make sure that you maintain residency throughout that period. Next slide, please. So you've heard it here mentioned a couple of times, and just to reiterate the point is that we are really designing this program so that it can be integrated with the special purpose home repair program. However, there are some other nonprofit providers of home repair services, and we are also more than happy to collaborate and work with those partners to also layer with their particular programs as well. But for our particular instance, in terms of what's under the purview of the county, we decided to layer it with the existing special purpose home repair program. Again, that's a program that offers up to $14,000 towards home repairs. Combined with this program, the total potential investment goes up to $44,000 per household. And as I mentioned previously, this effort really aligns with our broader housing initiatives, homeownership preservation, preventing displacement, and also supporting, encouraging neighborhood revitalization and stabilization. Next slide, please. So what are our expected, outcomes, for this program? What do we expect the impact to be? So improved housing quality and safety, especially within some of our older, more established communities. Reduce deferred maintenance burdens on our homeowners, and going forward, because you've had these significant critical repairs addressed, and this should add longevity to your home. Stabilized property values. We're here to make sure that do everything that we can to encourage stable property values and growth in property values, because that's how homeowners build equity and maintain equity in their homes. Again, these efforts, are to, strengthen neighborhoods. Anytime we can keep residents in place, especially longtime residents in our neighborhoods and communities, it makes those neighborhoods stronger. And then also, I should mention this also supports local based economic development in terms of providing increased opportunities for small and local contractors to work with the county and the county's agencies to create more opportunity for those organizations as well. Next slide, please. So the implementation timeline. So there are different phases, if you will, for the launch of this program. Of course, as Tiffany mentioned, there will be a procurement exercise for us to identify and procure a bench of qualified contractors. Those contractors will go through an onboarding process where we, introduce them to our application, provide them some coaching in regards to, engagement with homeowners, review the application and all the necessary documents, and also discuss, the process, especially the inspection process and how those activities are going to be monitored, during construction. We'll also, continue to do some public outreach as well. As I mentioned, we're going to reach out to, various different stakeholder groups, throughout the county, those that, are near and dear and touch people so that we can make sure that as many eligible homeowners are aware of this program and encourage them to apply. And then we'll move into a period where we'll actually, open, for applications. And so there will be a period of application intake where, residents and homeowners will be able to submit their applications, to come into the queue for processing. And so, the initial rollout is going to be, as Tiffany mentioned, district-based deployment. So there will be assigned contractors for each uh, commissioners districts, the five districts. And so you will know homeowners in those districts will know the contractor teams that are working in their areas. And so this kind of prevents, overlap and confusion amongst the teams. And so it's a strategy that I've been involved in other organizations that's we previously deployed and it's worked very well. And as I mentioned, previously, once construction and complete, is complete, there's going to be ongoing monitoring, and we, um, myself as the chief housing officer, will provide quarterly reporting, to the administration and to our board of commissioners on the progress of this program and hopefully the successful outcomes that we're achieving. Next slide. So one of the things that I sincerely believe in, and as an administration under Madam CEO Lorraine Cochran Johnson's leadership, we are taking up by the mantle is really leaning strongly into community engagement and transparency. And so what you can expect in the coming months is a public dashboard where, as I mentioned, I'll be, providing quarterly reports on the progress of this program, as well as others to our Board of Commissioners. We're going to stand up a public dashboard so that that information on our programs and their progress and their outcomes will be readily available to the public. And so we're really looking forward to putting that in place. We'll also conduct regular stakeholder updates. You will see us at your commissioner town halls, from time to time, as well as at other events and venues, providing updates on the program and its status. And then also, we sincerely believe in feedback loops. And so we're going to continue to solicit, feedback from our residents who are participating in the program, as well as our contractors who are delivering services, as well as our, partner cities and nonprofits in this exercise, to continue to look at, ways that we can improve and enhance the program, to make it better and make it more impactful, for our residents. Next slide, please. So that really concludes, the bulk of our information, but now is the time where we would really like to hear from you. And so I have not been able to see the chat, but hopefully there are some questions there. And Tiffany and I stand at the ready to address your questions. And so Tara or Laura, can you read the questions off for Tiffany and I?
Absolutely. I got you covered.
Thank you.
You are so welcome. That was a good conversation, and I think a lot of people got some good information and insight. So give me 2 seconds and we'll start with that first question. Hold, please. Oh, okay. Here we go. So the first question I'm going to start with, Dr. Ferguson, is I have lived in my home for 14 years, but purchased it last year. I'm assuming I wouldn't be eligible. Can you answer that question?
You've lived in your home for 14 years but you just purchased a home last year.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that is kind of a different, type of situation because you have had a residency, there for 14 years, but actual ownership for only the past year. So let us, kind of take that question offline. Obviously, we can't, kind of design a program for all of the cab, you know, trying to navigate each and everyone's individual situations. But let's, Tiffany and I kind of take a look at that question offline, and we are going to post responses to these questions on Decide DeKalb's website, and so we will definitely give you a response. Or if you prefer, whoever posed that question, if we could capture your email address, you can email us directly, and we can definitely give a direct response to you after Tiffany and I have had a chance to discuss.
I appreciate that. That wasn't supposed to stump you, but I get it.
Yeah.
Here is another question. We have Shonda Laws is asking whether or not contractors will have specific training in working with our seniors, knowing that the program, will certainly address some of those legacy residents and older, more seasoned neighbors. How will those contractors be trained?
Yes, absolutely. And so we definitely intend to bring in some partner organizations who work with the seniors, population to provide some training and mentoring and coaching to our contractors when it comes to engaging seniors. We understand, and definitely I personally understand how vulnerable our senior population is. We want to, make sure that the people representing this program and DeKalb County, first and foremost, kind of clearly identify themselves. You can imagine as soon as we, open, this program, you know, you know, there are some people out there, unfortunately, who have misguided intentions and would try to use this as an opportunity, to come out and, you know, scam and commit fraud against our homeowners. So we're going to take every, precaution possible that we can in order to minimize and prevent, that type of activity. But beyond that, we're also going to coach and work with our contractors on how they engage with our senior population, understanding, that for our seniors, this, is a major undertaking, especially when it comes to their home, which for, most people here in the United States is the largest single investment, lifetime investment that they'll make. And so we want to make sure that they approach our seniors, with care and respect and honesty and transparency and engaging them, but also patience as well, and being able to sit with them, walk them through the documents. If a senior has a person, in charge of their care, working with their care provider as well, making sure that all the information gets translated and communicated well to the senior so they completely know the program that they're signing up for.
That's important, Dr. Ferguson. Thank you. Another question that we've received is actually from Selma Kalaman, and she says that she is hoping that condo owners or can qualify to access these rehab funds. She is a senior who owns her condo, but the special purpose program has previously disqualified condo renters or sorry, owners. Can you answer or speak to that?
Yeah, the particular challenge with condominium owners comes to like exterior repairs. And when things typically in condominiums, the exterior, of the units and the common areas are the responsibility of the condominium association. And so while we haven't, developed kind of any specific prohibitions around serving condo owners, we probably will instill certain parameters around condo owners and how they can be served to focus on the interior of their units and what types of repairs, that we can provide in those, particular instances. Because typically, and when it comes to repair programs, that you have to get the consent of the condo association to do any repairs on the exteriors, and that those that would kind of cross over in the line of the common areas, and that can be, quite frankly, just problematic in order for condo owners to get that consent, from their neighbors. Uh, you know, just in my experience, that's just what I've seen happen. So take a look at the program and the parameters around it to see if we can make special conditions for condo owners that just focuses on interior repairs, the space that the condo owners, solely own and control, in their ownership.
Thank you for that. We've got a question regarding environmental reviews. Will environmental reviews be required?
Yeah, so we will have, certain conditions in terms of environmental reviews, particularly because of the ages of the homes that we'll be working on. We'll have some parameters around lead testing as well, and so you can expect that if a homeowner has, children, I believe the requirement is under the age of 6 that spend a significant amount of time, in the home, whether they're a parent of young children or whether they're a grandparent, where they have or an aunt or whatever, where they have young children under their care. Those particular homeowners, and their homes have to get tested for lead. And then we'll address those situations, on a case by case basis. If it's a widespread challenge, quite frankly, um, within the home as far as, potential lead contamination, then we will, have to look at and examining, the remediation effort that we have to put forth towards remediating that lead contamination. I can tell you, lead paint remediation is not inexpensive. And so if we have to go down that route, that can eat up a significant portion of your rehab budget, just trying to be fully, transparent. If there's a lead paint, but it's on the exterior of the home, that's kind of a different type of scenario, where there are other methods where you can, address, that contamination, that's, completely legal, meets EPA standards, so on and so forth, but it's less costly in terms of repair costs. So we'll be looking at incorporating those types of parameters for, especially for testing of lead paint and contaminants, as well as, when you're doing plumbing work, you do, testing for the presence of asbestos and things of that nature, to make sure that we can address those, serious, you know, health issues when doing the repairs.
Thank you. Dr. Ferguson and Tiffany, we've got a 72-year-old guest this evening that says she has been living in her home for approximately 25 years and she is a DeKalb County employee. Would she qualify for the program?
Yes, this program does not preclude or exclude DeKalb County employees. And thank you for your service and thank you for working on behalf of our residents, our community. And I'm glad that you're a DeKalb County resident as well. We want to encourage our employees to live where they work, and that's in DeKalb County. And so being a DeKalb County employee does not exclude you from participating in this program.
All right, Tiffany and Alan, we've got another question regarding the contractors. What is the timeline? How are you guys working with that contractor to apply to become a part of the program?
I'll turn that over to Tiffany because that's going to be a Decide DeKalb procurement process. And so, Tiffany, take it away.
Sure. So we will be releasing an RFQ, and as a part of that process, it will be to select a number of different contractors. As we said, we're going to be assigning them to different commission districts to assist with the residents in those districts. But from a timing perspective, the RFQ, we are hoping and aiming for a release sometime in July or August. That's going to be contingent upon the actual housing bonds closing, which right now is slated for July. So once that RFQ is opened, it will likely be open for about 30 to 45 days. We'll host a public RFQ Q&A session for you all to be able to ask questions before submitting your response and proposal. Once the application period has closed, then we have a selection committee that will review all of the responses and proposals received, and then we'll be selecting what we anticipate will be about 5 to 10 contractors to participate in the program, and implementation partners for that technical assistance. So once those are identified, our board of directors will approve the bench to be active. That will be active. Typically, it's about 2 to 3 years. And then after 2 or 3 years, we'll do another RFQ so that we can keep refreshing the bench so we're not always working with the same contractors. But we are hopeful that we will have our board approval of the selected contractors by October, and that we will be able to open up applications before the end of the year. I saw another question about timing of when will rehab start. That will likely be beginning of 2027. So we've got a lot of administrative work to do. The housing bonds need to close. We have to select our implementation partners and contractors. All of that will take place this year. Applications for the actual renovations will open the end of this year, but actual construction and renovations won't be until the beginning of 2027. All right, let's
Tiffany,
see.
that's great. No, thank you for that. I am looking at a question that is asking about, again, kind of that timeline. But Sharon McGann is asking, are repairs expected to start this year or next year? And you, I see, are also typing. But yes,
Yep, that will be next year. Applications will open at the end of this year, but the actual work won't be able to be started until 2027.
excellent. And I think that we are towards the end. If we did not get to your question, for anybody on the call that we didn't get to your question, just know that we are going to compile these and we are going to be sharing an overall. I think Dr. Ferguson and Tiffany need some time to kind of think through a couple because they were a bit tricky. But as long as we've captured your information, we've captured your question, it will be. We're going to answer them if you guys could bear with us a day or two. And then we will make sure that we communicate to you. We've got your email addresses for everybody that registered, and you will be given that link to this recording as well as answers to the question. And then this will actually be on our YouTube page. This recording will live and breathe on our YouTube page. So just wanted to make sure that you guys were aware of that. And then for those that do utilize social media, I would strongly suggest that you follow the county as well as Decide DeKalb on all of those wonderful social media platforms. So from LinkedIn to Instagram to Facebook and X. So we appreciate you and YouTube, of course. Is there
And
anything else, Tiffany or Dr. Ferguson?
yeah, I was going to say there was one question that I think will be an easy answer from Sharon Steele
Yeah.
with for Humanity to Cab. Hello, Sharon. She is asking if the oh, it looks like somebody else already answered it. But if
Yeah, I just typed in an answer. Sorry.
well,
Sorry.
there we go.
Yeah. But no, but to answer the question, for the audience, Sharon's question was, will there be a lien on the property? And the answer is yes. Um, owner occupied rehab, the funds that are in services, if you will, the value of those that are received by the homeowner, we will place a lien on the property. However, that lien, um, is not payable. The obligation is, completely forgiven as long as the residency period, is completed.
Well, I think we're going to be giving people 8 minutes back to their evening so that they can either start dinner or finish dinner. So,
Yeah.
Dr. Ferguson, Tiffany, I appreciate the conversation and the information. And I think that we are on to our next panel discussion. If you guys want to reiterate when that is, not sure if anybody on the call would be interested in joining us, but there you go.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so the next discussion we're going to have is a discussion around the DeKalb Housing Catalyst Program, which is our multifamily gap financing loan fund. And so this is a program that is really targeted towards developers and investors and multifamily properties, to help them fill funding gaps, so that those projects, can move forward, and especially when it comes to properties that are participating in the low income housing tax credit program. Often those projects have financial gaps, and so we're going to offer up a program to hopefully help fulfill, some of those financing needs, and to encourage new production and the preservation of affordable housing on the multifamily side, here in DeKalb County. And that session is going to be Tuesday, April 21st at 1:30 p.m. And then on Thursday, April 23rd at 3 p.m. is the Housing Capacity Building Seed Fund, which, consists of resources that we're going to put forth and offer up, to stakeholders in the community that want to build their capacity in order to, either produce or preserve housing here in DeKalb County. So we're really, really looking forward to sharing some of the programs we intend to launch under that Housing Capacity Building Seed Fund. And that'll be, again, Thursday, April 23rd at 3 p.m. And then also, we passed by the slide, but I really want to encourage people again, if you haven't done so already, please visit the Engage DeKalb website for the comprehensive housing plan. As I mentioned, it's currently underway. Your voice matters. And come August, September timeframe of this year, we'll be coming back to the community to discuss the recommendations that are based upon your feedback, your opinion, as well as the data and information and research that the team is doing in regards to housing challenges and opportunities in Winter Cab, and our proposed strategies on how we address those. And so your voice matters, and matters sincerely in that effort. So I encourage everyone, please, share it with your family, friends, your social networks, your church members, your coworkers, everyone who either owns or rents in DeKalb County, or aspires to own or rent in DeKalb County, so they can add their voice to that process. And with that, I will say thank you again for taking time out of your busy days and busy weeks. We really appreciate your time this evening. Again, if you have any additional questions, you can email us at housing@decidedecalb.com. And we look forward to continuing this conversation and launching this program, hopefully in third quarter of 2026. So thank you, and have a great evening.